The distress signal Galactic Council chamber trembled as another distant star system went dark on the holographic display. Ambassador Valrus of the Korath Collective watched with 4 eyes as the red markers spread like a plague across the eastern spiral arm. 12 civilizations had fallen in as many cycles. The Scourge was winning. "We have exhausted every military option," High Commander Zefix announced, his crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. "Our fleets cannot match their regeneration rate. For every Scourge ship we destroy, 3 more emerge from their bioforges." The assembled delegates murmured in their various languages, creating a symphony of despair. The Korath were known for their tactical brilliance. The Zenthari possessed energy weapons that could crack planets. The Milvans had shields that bent space itself. Yet none of it mattered against an enemy that treated death as merely a pause before. Resurrection.VLR is raised one slender appendage. There is one species we have not contacted. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew which species she meant. The Deathworlders? Zefix's voice carried disbelief. They have not even achieved faster-than-light travel on their own. Their planet is a nightmare of storms, predators, and diseases that would kill most of us in moments. What could they possibly offer? Valrus pulled up a data file on her personal display. 3 cycles ago, we sent an observation team to study their development. They were not meant to make contact, but their ship malfunctioned and crashed in a remote area of the planet. The humans found them. She projected images into the center of the chamber. The delegates leaned forward, watching as primitive vehicles arrived at a crash site. Bipedal creatures with soft skin and no natural armor rushed toward the wreckage without hesitation, pulling Korath observers from the burning debris with their bare appendages. "They rescued our team despite the danger to themselves," Valrus continued. "But that is not the remarkable part. When our rescue ship arrived 2 of their days later, the humans had kept our observers alive in an environment that should have killed them. They improvised medical equipment. They modified their own breathing apparatus. One human, a female named Sarah Chun, stayed awake for 47 consecutive hours monitoring life support systems she had built from salvaged parts. The chamber remained quiet, processing this information. Furthermore," Valrus added, "our team's biological survey revealed something extraordinary. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Only 3 other known species evolved on Class 10 or higher, and all went extinct before achieving spaceflight. Humans thrived. Their planet has mass extinction events every few million years, and they simply adapt. They evolved alongside predators that hunted them, diseases that should have eradicated them, and natural disasters that reshaped their continents." Counselor Thrain of the Milvan spoke, his gelatinous form pulsing slowly. "You propose we ask primitives to fight our war?" "I propose we ask survivors to teach us how to survive," Valrus corrected. "The Scourge overwhelms us because we have forgotten how to face extinction. We have had peace for 10,000 years. Humans face death every day on their own planet and keep building civilizations anyway." Zefix's form brightened, the crystalline equivalent of leaning forward with interest. "Their military capabilities?" Valrus pulled up more data. "Extensive. They wage war on themselves constantly, developing tactics and weapons at a pace we find disturbing. But more importantly, they possess something we have lost, the ability to make decisions under impossible pressure. Their soldiers train in conditions designed to break them, and they volunteer for it." She showed footage from human military exercises. Soldiers carrying weights equal to their own body mass through extreme temperatures. Fighter pilots enduring forces that would liquefy most council species. Medical personnel performing surgery in collapsed buildings while aftershocks continued. "They call it stress inoculation," Valrus explained. "They deliberately expose themselves to trauma so they can function during actual trauma. It is horrifying and brilliant." Admiral Korvax of the Zenthari fleet spoke for the first time, his reptilian features unreadable. If we bring them into the galactic community, we cannot control what they become. A species that evolved to conquer a death world, now given access to our technology? And if we do not? Velris countered. The Scourge will reach Earth eventually. At least if we ask for their help, humanity has a chance. We all do. The vote took less than a cycle to pass. For the first time in Council history, they would formally request military assistance from a pre-FTL species dot as the meeting adjourned. Velris stood alone at the holographic display, watching Earth rotate peacefully in its corner of the galaxy. The blue and green planet looked so beautiful from here, nothing like the nightmare world the scientific reports described. She wondered if humans saw it the same way, or if they knew how strange they were building cities on fault lines, farming in floodplains, and calling the most dangerous corners of their world home. She pressed the communication pad on her wrist. Prepare the diplomatic ship. And someone find me everything we know about human psychology. I want to understand what we're about to unleash. In 72 hours, first contact would occur. The Galactic Council had no idea they were not recruiting soldiers. They were waking up an entire civilization of survivors who had never learned how to quit. Asterisk. First Blood Captain Marcus. Rivera stood on the observation deck of the UCNS Tenacity, humanity's first warship designed for interstellar combat. 3 months had passed since the Koroth delegation landed in Geneva and changed everything. 3 months since humanity learned they were not alone. 3 months since Earth discovered it was considered a death world by the rest of the galaxy dot. The irony was not lost on him. Captain, we're approaching the Pelion system. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka reported from the helm. Korath fleet holding position at the outer marker. Marcus studied the tactical display. 47 Korath warships hung in formation, their elegant designs reflecting the light of Pelion's star. Beautiful vessels built by a civilization that had not seen real war in centuries. Behind them, 3 human ships looked brutish by comparison, all angles and armor, weapons bristling from every surface. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Velris, Communications Officer James Okonkwo announced. The holographic display shimmered, and the slender alien ambassador appeared. Her 4 eyes still unsettled Marcus, but he had learned to read the subtle color shifts in her skin that indicated emotion. Right now, she was worried. Captain Rivera, the Scourge fleet emerged from dark space 6 hours ago. They are advancing on Pelion 4, where 3 billion Koroth civilians are currently evacuating. Her voice remained steady despite the tremor in her hands. Our fleet will buy time for the transports, but the Scourge have numerical superiority. We ... We are honored you have come. Marcus nodded, his weathered face neutral. We're not here for honor, Ambassador. We're here because when someone asks for help, you show up. Tenacity out. The channel closed. Beside him, Colonel Ada Okafor of the Marine contingent raised an eyebrow. Diplomatic as always, sir. She doesn't need poetry. She needs to know we're reliable. Marcus turned to his crew. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. We are about to engage an enemy that has defeated every fleet sent against it. Remember your training. Trust your equipment. Watch each other's backs. He paused, then added, and remember what Commander Zevik said at the briefing. The Council thinks we're crazy for volunteering. Let's prove them right. A ripple of grim laughter ran through the bridge crew. The Scourge fleet appeared first as distortions on the sensors, then as actual vessels emerging from their FTL corridors. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. The intelligence reports had not done them justice. Each ship was a nightmare of organic technology chitin armor over biomechanical systems, weapon ports that looked like wounds, and a design philosophy that suggested the ships were grown rather than built. Christ, Tanaka whispered. There's hundreds of them. Counts at 237 and climbing, Tactical Officer Chun confirmed. They're matching the Korath formation. Marcus watched as the elegant Council warships began their engagement. Energy beams lanced through space, striking scourge vessels and burning through armor. For a moment, hope flickered. Then the damaged scourge ships began to regenerate, their organic hulls knitting back together like healing wounds. That's what breaks them, Hokover said quietly. You fight for hours, think you're winning, and then realize you've accomplished nothing. Marcus tapped his command console. Weapons, status on the Harbinger package? Spinal railgun charged and ready, sir. Nuclear payload armed. The Korath had been shocked when humanity showed up with nuclear weapons. Shocked and slightly horrified. The Council had banned atomic weapons 5,000 years ago as too destructive. Humans had looked at the problem differently. Sir, Korath flagship is taking heavy damage, Chun reported. Their shields are at 30%. Marcus made his decision. Helm, full burn toward the Scourge center mass. Weapons, prepare to fire on my mark. All ships follow our lead. The Tenacity surged forward, her fusion drives burning at maximum output. Beside her, the UCNS Defiance and UCNS Resolution matched course. They dove past the Korath formation, whose ships were too damaged to pursue, directly into the swarm of Scourge vessels. Captain, we're being targeted by at least 60 enemy ships, Chun said. His voice tight. Good. They're paying attention to us instead of the Korath. Marcus gripped his armrest. Weapons fire. The ship shuddered as the spinal railgun released its payload. A tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, punched through the lead Scourge vessel like it was paper. The nuclear warhead detonated a microsecond later, vaporizing what remained. But Marcus was not watching that ship. He was watching the ones around it. The Scourge ships recoiled, their formation breaking. For the first time in the war, they had encountered a weapon they could not simply regenerate from. You cannot heal from atomic fire. All ships, rapid fire, Marcus ordered. Don't give them time to adapt. The 3 human warships unleashed hell. Railgun slugs followed by nuclear payloads, missile swarms with fusion warheads, and kinetic impactors that struck with the force of meteor strikes. The Scourge had evolved to fight energy weapons and biological warfare. They had no answer for primitive kinetic destruction, backed by humanity's most terrible inventions. Ships exploded. Ships melted. Ships simply ceased to exist. The Scourge are breaking formation, Chun reported, awe creeping into his voice. They're retreating. Ambassador Valorous appeared on the display again, her skin cycling through colors Marcus had never seen. Captain Rivera, what did you do? They've never retreated before. Never. Marcus allowed himself a tight smile. We killed them in ways they can't regenerate from. Fire doesn't heal. Radiation doesn't heal. And you can't regrow from a cloud of atoms. He watched the Scourge fleet flee into dark space, leaving behind debris fields where their ships had been. The Council banned nuclear weapons because they won peace, Marcus continued. We kept them because we never forgot what war actually is. Sometimes the only answer to an extinction threat is the threat of extinction. Valorous was silent for a long moment. I think we have made a terrible mistake inviting you to the stars. Probably, Marcus agreed. But we're the mistake you need right now. As the human fleet regrouped with the surviving Korath ships, Marcus stared at the tactical display. This was just one battle. The Scourge had thousands of ships across dozens of systems. But now they knew humanity was in the fight, and humans had learned something in their bloody history that the peaceful Council had forgotten. War is not won by being invincible. It is won by being willing to do what must be done, even when the cost is terrible. Especially then. Set course for the nearest Scourge-occupied system, Marcus ordered. We're not done. Behind him, the crew moved with renewed purpose. They were not fighting for territory or glory. They were fighting because 3 billion Korath civilians would sleep safely tonight because humans had showed up when asked. That was what Deathworlders did. They survived. They protected. And they never, ever quit. The war was over. The Scourge hive mind had existed for 17,000 years, consuming civilizations across 3 galactic arms. It had faced every weapon, every tactic, every desperate last stand that organic life could muster. It had adapted to all of them. Until now, for the first time in its existence, the hive mind felt something its component organisms had long ago abandoned: fear. The human vessels were spreading across contested systems like a virus, and everywhere they went, Scourge ships died permanently. No regeneration, no resurrection, just death. The hive mind convened its strategic cores in the massive biostation orbiting Kepler 442b, where it had first begun consuming this galaxy. It needed to understand these new enemies. Data flowed through neural pathways kilometers long. Humans were weak. Humans were slow. Humans possessed minimal natural defenses. Yet humans treated their own fragility as a weapon. They built machines to compensate for their weaknesses. They developed tactics that assumed casualties. They fought as if death was acceptable. The hive mind accessed historical data from absorbed species. None of them had weaponized their own vulnerability this way. Then the station's perimeter. Sensors screamed a warning. 40 human warships emerged from FTL less than 1 light-second away, far closer than safe protocol allowed. The hive mind realized with shock that humans were willing to risk miscalculation and catastrophic collision just to gain tactical surprise. They were insane. Admiral Sarah Chun, promoted after Marcus Rivera's retirement, watched the massive biostation fill her view screen. Intelligence suggested this was the Scourge's central coordination hub, the heart of the hive mind itself. Destroying it would not end the war, but it would blind the enemy's strategic capability. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive energy signatures," Tactical reported. "The station is charging weapons." Expected. Execute Plan Thermopylae. The human fleet split into 4 groups, each moving in seemingly random vectors. The Scourge station fired, its biological weapons unleashing swarms of attack organisms and beams of concentrated viral loads. 3 human ships were struck before they could evade. Sarah watched the damage reports scroll across her screen. UCN's Marathon, UCN's Sparta, UCN's Athens. Good ships. Good crews. "Deploy countermeasures," she ordered, her voice steady despite the grief clawing at her chest. The infected ships did not try to flee or cure themselves. Instead, they accelerated directly at the biostation, their infected crews already dead, but their Ship A is executing final orders. At the last moment, the ship's reactors went critical. 3 fusion explosions bloomed against the station's organic hull. Armor that could regenerate from energy weapons simply vaporized. Structural elements that could heal from biological attacks melted into plasma. The station shuddered, its vast bulk actually moving from the impact. "All ships, attack formation Delta," Sarah commanded. "Hit them while they're reeling." The human fleet converged, weapons firing in coordinated volleys. Nuclear missiles, railgun slugs, kinetic kill vehicles, and focused plasma bursts. Humanity had learned to combine every weapon type to overwhelm the Scourge's adaptive defenses, but the station was not dying fast enough. "Ma'am, Korath reinforcements arriving," communications announced. Along with everyone else, Sarah's display lit up with new contacts. Korath cruisers, Xanthari destroyers, Milvan dreadnoughts. 50 different species, hundreds of ships, all converging on this one point. The Galactic Council had committed everything to this battle. Ambassador Valorus's voice came through on the command channel. Admiral Chun, our combined forces are at your disposal. What are your orders? Sarah blinked. The Council was deferring to humanity's strategic command. 6 months ago, they had been a pre-FTL species. Now they were running a coalition fleet. Form a perimeter at coordinates I'm transmitting, Sarah ordered. When the station dies, every Scourge ship in this sector will converge here. We need to hold them off while assault teams plant demolition charges at the station's core. Who will lead the assault teams? Valorus asked. Human Marines, backed by Koroth tactical specialists and Zenthari shock troops. We'll need your species' expertise, but our people know how to fight inside hostile territory. Because humans had been doing it on Earth for millennia, clearing caves of predators, raiding enemy fortifications, fighting room to room through cities. The galaxy's peaceful species had forgotten these skills. Humanity had refined them into an art form. Colonel James Okonkwo led the assault personally, his armor scarred from a dozen previous engagements. His team moved through the station's organic corridors like ghosts, avoiding major Scourge forces and planting antimatter charges at structural weak points. Identified by Korath engineers, the station fought back. Walls became weapons. Floors released paralytic toxins. The very air turned hostile. Marines fell, their suits breached by biological attacks no human immune system could handle, but the team kept moving. Every meter gained was paid for in blood, and they paid it without hesitation. Last charge placed, Okonkwo reported, his breathing labored. We're at the primary neural nexus. It's huge. Like standing inside a living brain. Can you see the core processor? Sarah asked. Affirmative. It's pulsing. I think it knows we're here. Sarah checked her tactical display. The Scourge fleet was arriving, exactly as predicted. Thousands of ships against hundreds. The Council forces were taking damage, but they were holding. Set the timers and get out, Colonel. Ma'am, at minimum safe distance, the charges won't destroy the core. But if someone stays to trigger them manually... Sarah closed her eyes. How many volunteers do you have? All of us, Admiral. Of course they did. That was the terrible gift humanity brought to the stars, the willingness to die so others could live. Not because they wanted to, but because someone had to, and they had answered the call. Do it, Sarah whispered. The transmission cut out. 30 seconds later, the biostation exploded from within. Not a clean destruction, but a cascading failure as antimatter charges ripped through the hive mind's central processing cores. The entire structure came apart, biological components dying as their coordinating intelligence ceased to exist. The Scourge fleet stopped moving, every ship simultaneously. Without the hive mind's coordination, they were just organic machines without purpose. All ships, begin bombardment, Sarah ordered. Destroy them while they're paralyzed. The battle was not a battle anymore. It was an execution. The Council fleet methodically eliminated every Scourge vessel, and for once, they did not regenerate. When it was over, Sarah stood alone in her ready room, staring at the casualty reports. 217 humans had died on the station assault team. 43 ships destroyed in the battle. Over 15,000 crew members, who would never see Earth again. Ambassador Valorus found her there an hour later. The war is over, Valorus said quietly. Scourge forces across the galaxy have stopped moving. We are sending teams to dismantle their remaining infrastructure, but without the hive mind, they are no threat. You have saved us all. At what cost? Sarah asked, not looking up from the reports. at the cost you are willing to pay. Valorous moved closer. We of the Council believed peace was the highest virtue. We forgot that peace must sometimes be defended. You humans never forgot, because you evolved in a place where forgetting meant extinction. Sarah finally looked at the ambassador. Is that what we are to you? Just weapons you can point at your enemies? No. Valorous' skin shifted to a deep purple, the Korath expression of profound respect. You are what we were, before we had the luxury of forgetting. You are survivors, teachers, guardians, and yes, warriors when you must be. The galaxy is better for having you in it, even though you terrify us. Sarah managed a small smile. We terrify ourselves sometimes. That is why we trust you. You know what you are capable of, and you choose restraint anyway. That is wisdom we had lost. In the weeks that followed, humanity's role in the galactic community was formalized. Not as conquerors or overlords, but as protectors and advisors. When the Council faced threats, they would ask. And humans would answer, because that was what Deathworlders did. They survived the unsurvivable. They endured the unendurable. They stood between the darkness and the light, not because they were fearless, but because they had learned long ago that fear was just another thing to overcome. Admiral Sarah Chun returned to Earth 6 months later. She stood in Geneva, at the monument erected for those who had fallen in the Scourge War. 2,317 names carved in stone. Humans who had gone to the stars and never came home. But 3 billion Korath civilians lived because they had gone. Countless other species survived because humans had answered a desperate call for help. The galaxy was at peace because people from a death world had remembered what the rest had. Forgotten that survival requires sacrifice, that peace requires strength, and that sometimes the only way to end a war is to win it. Sarah placed her hand on the monument, feeling the cool stone under her palm. The war is over, she whispered to the names. You can rest now. Behind her, the earth continued spinning, its storms raging, its volcanoes erupting, its tectonic plates grinding. A nightmare planet that had forged a species capable of saving a galaxy. The Death World kept dreaming its children into existence, generation after generation, teaching them to survive, to adapt, to overcome. And when the galaxy called for help, again, as it inevitably would, those children would answer. Because humanity had learned the most important lesson their cruel planet had to teach. You do not survive by being the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. You survive by refusing to quit. The end. Asterisk.